All right, Nicole. Well, why don't we get started? Um, so I'm really excited today to kick off our Wednesday wellness webinars. And as many of you may know, I'm a financial advisor with Parallel Financial here in Seneca, but I believe that our health is very important on all levels. So obviously, I deal primarily in a financial advising sense with financial health. But with January and the January effect, I wanted to host a series of webinars that talk about all different aspects of our health. So we have health coach Nicole Schrader today, and she is going to talk a little bit about her journey, her health journey, and also going to give us some just really practical, usable steps and some tools for all of us to just to improve our physical health in 2022. So, hey, Nicole, take it away.
Hey, David, thanks so much for putting all this together. Give me just a minute while I pull up the screen share so that you guys can see my presentation here. Starting to water right as we're going here. All right, so I am Nicole, and I am just really excited today to share with you about the one, I guess, aspect of health that I'm the most passionate about. And so just to kind of put a plug for what's to come. So today I'm going to be talking about health in the area of the physical body. Again, sorry, I don't know what happened with my eye. Just all of a sudden started watering. But then to come in the next 4 weeks or the next 3 weeks, we'd love to have you come back for any of these others. They're all going to be super impactful and hopefully help you to just move the needle forward in your life in 2022. So I read a statistic that it is estimated that 95 million people made a resolution for better health this week. So as I'm doing this, it is, we're in the first week of January. So a lot of people make decisions or goals, and this can be with their physical health, but it can also be in any of the future areas that we're going to be talking about in the weeks to come. But what I want you to do is I want you to look at this image, and I want you to think of this as being like a clover, so to speak. And these four parts, which aren't necessarily supposed to be parts, but that's just how they look on my screen, are the different factors that we're going to be talking about over the next 4 weeks. And so I want you to kind of think about where you are. Like, are you close to the center in the different areas, like with the physical body, your legal health, your financial health, and your relational health? Or are you kind of outside at the edge? Because where we can find the best place and be the most optimally healthy is if we can kind of move that to the center. So David is going to help us by sharing a poll. So David, can you do the poll real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, so today on a scale of 1 to 10, right now today, where would you rank your health? So with 1 being poor and 10 being high. It says hosts and panelists cannot vote.
Aha, so I can't vote.
So can anybody vote? That's
what it looks like we have 2 votes.
Oh, we have votes?
We have some votes. We do.
Amazing. All right.
Looks like we have a 6 and a 7.
A 6 and a 7. All right. So, well, that gives us a good idea of where we are today with our participants, and just kind of helps me to know as we go forward. So I'm going to click close on that and advance our slide. Whoops, the other way. Okay, so one of the things that I want to actually mention before we dive into, as people have made these resolutions and decisions for their goals in 2022, we actually have 3 different rulers that we can gauge things on. And so, to really make changes, you have to be willing, you have to be ready, and you have to have at least some semblance of confidence that you will be able to move towards those goals. So one of the things I like to do, and you can have a chance to, at the end, I'll talk a little bit about this, but to kind of think on that same scale, 1 to 10, of how willing are you, how ready are you, and how confident are you in whatever goals that you are setting. So just a little bit about me. My name is Nicole. I said that earlier, and I'm a certified health coach. I have an LLC, which is, I like to call it a ministry-based business called Greater Things Health. It was in 2016 that I made a transformation in my own health where I lost 73 pounds. And so I have stayed pretty close to my lowest goal weight over these past 5 years. Of course, I've veered a little to the left and a little to the right, but I have some guardrails that I've set for myself, and I try to keep it in those lines. But just so you know where I'm coming from as I'm presenting some of this information, so that I've been there too. So I'm going to go through 3 top tips today. I'm going to start with these 3 top tips on really just getting healthy on whatever goals that you have set for 2022. So I'm going to go through them, have a plan, be intentional, and form habits. So those are 3 loaded tips for sure. So the first thing is have a plan. So I'm not here today to necessarily tell you a specific plan that you should follow. I'm not going to teach through a certain plan. There are a lot of really great plans out there for nutrition, for fitness, and so forth. So, you can do a lot of research on that. Of course, I'll be glad to share with you some ideas. But once you have your plan, I want to encourage you, first of all, to focus. And what I mean by focus, that's an acronym, and it stands for follow one course until successful. So if you choose a plan and it is reputable and you have seen people have success with that plan, then chances are it works. And so you will just need to make a decision to follow that course of action until you are successful too. Now, if you determine that that plan isn't a good fit for you, then that's fine. You can ditch it and switch to a new plan. But I just want to say, whatever it is that you choose, be all in with that thing. The second tip that I have is to not mix and match. And so I would say that for my clients, one of the most detrimental things that happens is they try to piecemeal together a little bit of this plan that they've done in the past, and a little bit of this one, and a little bit of that one. And they say, well, everyone, I did this one back in, 1999. I remember this little way that they expected you to do something, or, maybe it is you could, eat a lot of protein and no fruit. But then when they did this one, it was this way. And so what happens sometimes is people try to mix and match, and that's probably not the best course of action. So I would just say, whatever you do, follow that one thing until you're successful, and don't mix and match. The second tip is being intentional. So this is just all about being mindful about what you're doing. So, for example, when you wake up in the morning, that you were waking up saying, thinking that you're starting the day off as a healthy person. Go ahead and say that. Go ahead and say, I am a healthy person, and I'm making healthy choices hour by hour. In fact, I still eat every 2 to 3 hours. And so I'm consistently being intentional about, in the next 2 to 3 hours, how do I make the healthiest choice? And then just to not do things on autopilot. So what I mean by that is, I think about this place that I used to work, over 10 years ago. And every time I walked into the office, one of the ladies kept candy on her desk. And so I just wasn't intentional about thinking about my choices, and I would just grab that candy. I knew exactly where it was. Or I think about a client that I have who works in a restaurant, and she's like, there's always French fries available. And so she just, without thinking, so without that intentionality and without being mindful, she just grabs them and eats them. And so that would definitely not move the needle forward in our health. And so the way we move the needle forward is mindfulness and not going on autopilot, just thinking about being very strategic about every step that we make. And then the third thing is to form habits. And so there is a, wait a minute, I clicked the wrong button. There is a lot of different numbers out there for how long does it really take to form habits. And so you're going to see everything from 21 days to 40 days to 66 days, 75 days, a year, and so forth. So I will just say that habits, going back to part 2, require intentionality. As long as you're doing the thing, then you kind of have the habit. But as soon as you stop, you don't really have the habit anymore. I have something personally that I did every day for 365 days in 2021. That specific thing I'm not doing anymore in 2022. So the first couple of days I was kind of like, well, it feels doing now. I don't really have that habit anymore. I've lost it just like that. So if I want to regain that habit, I would need to be intentional. And then I just want to encourage you to track your habits. So whether you track in a journal, whether you track on an app, there are so many great apps out there for tracking nutrition and tracking fitness that you track it. If you're working towards maybe a weight loss goal, that you have something visible, maybe a printout that you can mark off every day, or, a lot clients will have a lot of times a jar of with like marbles in it or something, to where they're either adding one in or taking one out every time that they make a step towards their goal. So somehow, some way, track what's passing your lips, track if you're choosing to do a fitness regimen. If you're working towards reaching a certain, like one of my goals for this year is I want to do, I'm just going to do 100 miles. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to do it all in a day. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm running, because that is not something that that is a strong drive for me. But, I'm going to track until I have accomplished 100 miles, whether that's walking, whether that's biking, whether that's rowing, whatever. So track.
We have a viewer saying, I have a My Journey map I've created for a visual tracker. I could post a link for your audience if you'd like. And yeah, that would be great, because any way that we can track habits and track our intentionality would be excellent. So please post that in the chat, and we would love to share that with our viewers.
Yes, thank you. That would be super, super helpful. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a quick list of 22 things in 2022 that you can do to move the needle forward in your health. Now, most of these I'm just going to read off, but right here in the beginning, I have 2 visuals. So the first one is H2O, hydrate. Okay, so I will tell you that when I started my health journey, this is kind of embarrassing to admit, I really don't even know how most of my bodily organs were functioning, because I drank no water, none. I drank coffee, I drank a specific diet soft drink, and occasionally I drank wine. Oh, and I am from the South, so I drank a lot of sweet tea. So learning to hydrate was a big hurdle for me, but it was something I had to be intentional about. So here is my tip for that. First of all, I will always have water nearby. Now, in these days, I didn't back then, but I like to show this to my clients. This is just one of the small junior size, I like to say kid size water bottles. It literally fits in the palm of your hand. You can find these in 8 or 10 ounce bottles. And so if thinking about drinking a lot of water is overwhelming to you, then I tell people to break it down. And, chances are you could probably open this and you could probably guzzle it pretty quick. If you will do one of these every 2 to 3 hours, because again, like I mentioned earlier, I eat every 2 to 3 hours. I eat 6 times a day. Still, even 5 years later from when I actually did my true health journey. But if you will do this every 2 to 3 hours, it breaks it up and so that it is not overwhelming. So that is one of my best tips today. Number 2 is to eat foods that are nutritious and life-giving. And so one of the things that I did is I brought a paper plate and I divided this plate. First of all, I want to mention that this paper plate is probably smaller than most of your plates in your pantry. Okay, I chose the small one on purpose. If you look at the sizes of plates over, say, the past 5 or 6 decades, we've gotten bigger and bigger plates here in America. In fact, I know this to be true because we moved into a home about, I'll say 10 years ago, and it was an older home. And when I went to put my plates in the cupboard, so to speak, the doors would not close because my plates were too big, much bigger than they used to be back in the day. So anyway, you might want to think about making your plate, thinking about it, dividing it like this. And on this large side of it here, this would be where you would have your vegetables. And in these 2 sections would be where you would have your protein. And then and then down here would be like your grains. It could also be your beans, your certain kind of vegetables, maybe like a sweet potato and so forth. So that's just a great way, a visual of how to put the food on your plate and how to do the portion sizes. Okay, going quickly through the next ones. Move your body. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter what you choose, just move your body. Number 4 is get sleep or rest. Boy, that's one that is lacking for a lot of people. A lot of people get really, really short amounts of sleep. Number 5, find ways to minimize stress. Whatever you can do to minimize the stress in your life. Number 6, prepare your physical environment. So remove temptations. Go to your cupboard, get rid of all of the stuff left over from the holidays. And if you can do that at work as well, that would be awesome. I know sometimes we don't have the power or the authority to do that outside of our home. Number 7, eliminate sugary beverages. And it went the wrong direction again. Hold on. Number 8, find a positive, supportive community. Find people that are going to encourage you and cheer you on. Number 9, I kind of mentioned this one a little bit earlier, but is to track or journal what you're doing. Just track every single day. And in fact, for me, I wouldn't even wait till the end of the day. I would do it every 2 to 3 hours as I ate and drank. Number 10, reduce the amount of alcohol that you consume. Number 11, stretch. Stretch your muscles, stretch your body. Number 12, get some fresh air. So if you have a nice day, get outside and get some fresh air. 13, sunshine. That vitamin D helps so much for our mood. Number 14, prayer or meditation. Spending some time quietly thinking or praising and worshiping. Number 15, practicing some type of controlled breathing. Now, again, I'm not going to go into the details of a lot of this stuff because you can Google it and you can find some different ways of like breathing in for a certain number of counts and breathing out for a certain number of counts, and how it actually really relaxes your just your mood and everything. Number 16, chiropractic care. I'm a big fan of that. Number 17, massage, just to help reduce the stress. 18, if you need to get a physical or get some lab work done just to take care of your, so again, we're talking about the healthy body. If you need to do that as part of moving the needle forward in your health, just to get some diagnostics, take care of that this year. Make 2022 the year that you do that. Number 19, dance. You don't have to be a great dancer, but just dance in your kitchen, in your home, when you're cleaning the house, whatever. Number 20 is to laugh. I have you guys may have heard it at the beginning of, but I have a puppy. He's now 11 months old, but this dog has made me laugh a lot over the past year. So if I'm grateful for anything for the dog, he makes me laugh. And number 21 is just to give hugs. It really just increases the endorphins. and makes us happy overall and helps us to move the needle forward in our health. So hopefully you can use some of those. That's actually 21, and let's see. So 22 is going to be work with a professional. So whether or not you work with me, or any of the future webinar participants over the next 3 weeks of the series, whether you go out and find someone in your area or whatever, work with a professional. The reason that is helpful is because sometimes they can help you see things that you didn't necessarily see, help you view it in a new light. They can provide education, they can provide information, they can help hold you accountable and give you some encouragement as you go through whatever process that you're going through to get healthy this year. And then the last thing that I have is just an invitation for you to connect with me. I just want to thank you for spending the last 20 or 30 minutes here. And you can connect with me further by getting accessing some resources, some quizzes that I have, some free content that I have by going to that QR code. And I think David is going to share with you how to, if you don't know how to do a QR code, how to do that.
Yes. So since my my phone and probably your phone is never more than 5 or 10 feet away from you, I have my phone here. So if I open up the camera app and if I just scan that QR code, it's going to open up the website, and it gives some websites for Nicole's Linktree, where you can take the well-being evaluation, take the How Healthy Are You Really quiz. You can join her Facebook group, get added to her newsletter, take back your health video, and also a tutoring voucher, $40 session for any tutor in her network, because that is another area of her expertise in education. So yeah, so I love the last slide about work with a professional, because I think that the results come with doing, and the results for anything come with doing the right things. So a lot of times you'll hear practice makes perfect. Well, I mean, perfect practice takes perfect. If you're practicing the wrong things, it doesn't necessarily make you good at what you need to do. So I feel like working with a professional can really pay dividends for anybody. So I had a couple questions for Nicole. There are, back in the 80s, there was eat low cholesterol and don't eat eggs because eggs are going to kill you. And now there's low carb. Then there's also high carb, and fats used to kill you, and now fats are good for you. How do we decipher like all of this information? And I know that we're not going to go into personalized diet plans, but there's just so much information out there that is just confusing. And then I think sometimes if we're a little bit kind of confused, we'll say, you know what, I'm not sure if fats are good or bad. So you know what, I'm just going to go to McDonald's and I'm not going to worry about it because I'm all confused. So what is your advice kind of on all of those vegan, non-vegan, there's so many different diets out there.
Okay, that is a great question. It can be confusing. And I think that if I go back I'm not going to share the presentation again, but just something that I shared earlier there are a lot of really good plans. I think if you find a plan that has been vetted out by someone smarter than we are, probably, and it's not really gimmicky, then you're probably okay just to do that. I can tell you that for me right now, and I'm not saying this would be something that I would, push for everyone. I think that's another thing is find what works for you. But for me right now, when I mentioned this plate, I will show that again, is that that I'm on my plate. I am currently in this phase of my health journey to where one of the tips I said was eating nutritious, life-giving foods. So when I'm putting my my grains over here, I'm not necessarily getting them out of a box. that's just me personally. I just don't want to eat right now a lot of things that are processed or out of, I'll say like, hamburger helper or whatever. Back in the day, that's what I did because it was convenient and it was, all I maybe had time for. But I think that for me personally, if I stick with the nutritious, life-giving foods, then I don't worry about all that other stuff. I don't worry about, in fact, when I track, I don't even track macros. Macronutrients is something people talk a lot about. So I don't really worry about personally how much fat it has. If it goes into that filter of is it nutritious and life-giving, then I can eliminate all those other little minutia, I guess. I'm not saying that it's not important. It is important. But I think that if you just find something, my final answer, David, is if you just find something that has been vetted out and has worked for not just one other person, but for multiple people and appears to be safe and like a good sound plan, then you're probably good to go.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So why don't we open it up for other questions? We have a few minutes, and this is just a really good opportunity for anybody to ask questions about healthy lifestyles, about weight loss, and general health. So does anybody have any questions in the chat log? And we do have your link in the chat. I put 2 extra EEs in there, but we have it now, and that's some excellent information. So, how do you think that how we maintain our physical health can also, like, how does that mirror how we can maintain health in other parts of our lives, our finances and our relationships and so on and so forth? I mean, do you feel like the accountability and intentionality is important in all areas?
I definitely do. And now that you're asking that, it reminds me back to that image that I gave earlier, that kind of think about it like a shamrock. I probably didn't expand on that as much as I would have liked to, so I will have the opportunity to do that now. Yes, I think that health is a ripple effect. And if we are not healthy physically, then we are like, oh, I'm stressed out and I can't, I'm feeling like a big old failure. I can't get this part of my life right. And so then it spills over into one of those other areas. Then we might start having relationship issues. We might start having financial issues. And not saying that our physical health causes those things, but it's just they're all so interwoven. They're so interconnected. And so it's all about, I don't really want to say balance, but that's where I said kind of going into the middle of that diagram. So so think of those as magnets. If one's pulling you away from being the best version of you, and another thing is like, oh, I really want to be the best version of me here. I want to be, healthy here, but I'm not healthy over here, then it's kind of like a tug of war is happening. So now here's the thing. We're not all going to be a perfect 10 in all of those areas. There's going to be these ebbs and flows, but the closer that we can get towards the 10 in each of the areas, then the better off we are. And so I do think that it's a ripple effect.
Nope, I agree. I agree totally. What I'd like to do is I'm going to take over the screen share, and I am going to show your Linktree page. And
you're so nice.
So again, you can take the well-being evaluation quiz. How healthy are you? Definitely join the Facebook group. Get added to your newsletter. Take back your health video. And if you have any kiddos that need some help with tutoring, there's a $40 training voucher. For anybody that is concerned about their financial health, if you email me, david@parallelfinancial.com, I do have a few copies of our firm's chief investment officer, Greg Towner. He wrote a book called Investment Lessons of 2020. And it talks, quite frankly, there's quite a few pieces of information in there about intentionality with money and intentionality with investing and things like that. So it almost mirrors in a lot of ways this same philosophy. So again, david@parallelfinancial.com. Free copy of the book. If you're local, we can get it to you in person. If not, we can definitely mail it out to you. I love books. I think that a lot of our success can come from reading, because there's just so much information out there on any topic, and anything that we ever want to do, somebody else has probably already accomplished. So with that being said, I would love it if you would connect with Nicole, connect with me. Join us on our next webinar next week. We'll be talking about some legal health issues, some of the documents that we should all have in place, and some just common legal mistakes that we might make. The following week, we will have Michaela Tomberlin from Counseling for Life talking about some relationship tips and also stress management. So you can imagine if your relationships are out of order, how that can just affect other parts of your life. I mean, if you're stressed out about relationships, you might stress eat, which puts on a few more pounds, which means it's harder to exercise. So you sit on the couch and watch more TV, then you get, you gain more weight. And then finally, on the last week, I'm going to have 22 financial tips for 2022. And there will be some discussion of wills. We'll actually have an attorney with us discussing wills, powers of attorneys, things like that. Just really general stuff. But again, it's important. I've seen it countless times when unfortunately somebody passes away, they didn't have the right legal documents in place. It just really makes things very difficult on the surviving family members. So one last call. Does anybody have any other questions before we end the webinar? Okay. And since I am the host of the Weekly Wealth Podcast, I'm going to put Nicole on the spot. I ask every guest on my podcast, and by the way, check out www.weeklywealthpodcast.com. I always ask a guest for their definition of true wealth. So we're going to close down our webinar today with Nicole's definition of true wealth.
Well, I don't like being put on the spot, but I will answer your question. I will make it very succinct. I will say that wealth is health, or health is wealth. How about that?
Perfect. Nope. I love it. I've asked, 20 or 30 guests, and nobody yet has given me a number of, as soon as I have $1 million or 100,000 or 10 million, I'll have wealth. Everybody's given some version of freedom or health or being able to give back to the world. So money is just debits and credits, and it's not even really paper anymore. Pretty soon it's going to be all digital, but money can certainly impact our lives in positive ways. So we hope to see everybody next time. I'm going to put my email address. If you'd like a copy of our Chief Investment Officer's book, and also make sure to check out my podcast, www.weeklywellpodcast.com. And with that being said, we appreciate everybody's time, and make sure to connect with Nicole and reach out to me if you have any money questions that are keeping you up at night. So,
thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.